So in the co-main event, you finally get two dudes who says, "Oh yeah, our champion of our division, he's gonna go fight up at 155. Yeah, well, we're not gonna keep the division on hold. Let's see. There's only gonna be one real champion, but we're gonna be the next guy to fight him." If Volkanovski wins the belt, let's talk about that first. If he wins the lightweight championship and now he's double champ, he's McGregor, he's DC, right? How meaningful is this fight right here? Because at the end of the day, you'd have to imagine, unless Volkanovski is worksman like, hard hat on, he's not going to go, "Oh yeah, let me just go defend my featherweight belt now." He'll probably try to be like, "Okay, I'll stick around in lightweight for a bit." So like, how meaningful is this if Volkanovski wins?
I mean, it only depends on how true Volkanovski stays to his word, because he has already said that he's going to make this a number one contenders fight and come back for the strap. Instantly, Dana's already I don't know if it's been confirmed or if it's just an Uncle Chael leak, but once the door closes on that fight, there is no longer a featherweight champion. So it's an interim versus a previous. So we'll see, man. It could make for a hungrier Volkanovski, but I'm excited because I truly think this one is a number one contenders match. Neither of these guys have been calling for the championship, but they have been calling for the dudes that are on their way to the championship. And it is a final meeting of contenders, man. And this is a classic striker versus a wrestler or a striker who has a lot of ground game, a lot of skill, and is very, very well rounded, versus a wrestler who has very good striking and is also really, really well rounded, very powerful. This is going to be a crazy fight, man. And when you said underhyped, Derek, that cannot be understated anymore, man, because I feel like the rest of this card everybody's been talking about the championship, but we're forgetting about the interim championship right here, and there's a lot of other bangers coming up.
Well, my favorite part, like I said, is that they're not holding up the division, right? And I'm a little surprised. I didn't know that the door would be closed on that featherweight championship if Volk is. Are you saying it's not win or lose? If he loses, he's keeping his belt. You know what I mean?
Yes, but it's like I said, Uncle Chael. This is all Uncle Chael, so who knows exactly how true it is? I'm sure the greatest in West Lynn. But what he was saying is that once the door does close, this is a number one contenders match. So if Volkanovski is going to come back, then he has that fight. If he isn't, then that person is the champion.
Well, listen, I'll just say this, man. You have a phenomenal blood and guts fighter in Yair Rodriguez versus another blood and guts fighter in Josh Emmett. But this is really the right hand versus a diverse, wide range of striking attacks right here. Now, the one thing that I think is a big separating factor between Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez, even though they're both very durable, Josh Emmett is the definition of durable. Yeah, you get sent to the Shadow Realm against Jeremy Stevens, right? But at the end of the day, man, I do think that this is going to be... This is going to be heavy hitting, man. A lot of trading in the middle of the octagon. And I think this is going to come down to either somebody is getting finished, right? Or it's going to be a big points battle, man. And we're going to have a similar discussion that we did against the Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett fight, right? Or the Yair Rodriguez versus, why am I blanking? Who did Yair just fight?
Oh, his last fight.
I know exactly who he just fought. Why am I blanking on this? Brian Ortega. There we go. Or not Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, where he lost that fight. I think that this is going to be similar to that one, right? Where it's just, we're really going to be sitting here and having that conversation about like striking wise, tit for tat, what's more meaningful? How are you scoring this fight? But I will mention, I mean, you said it, Yair Rodriguez has a ground game that is a little bit different than Josh Emmett's. However, is Josh Emmett going to allow the fight to get there? And that's really going to be the question. This dude is phenomenal at just kind of keeping that range, doing whatever he can to load up on that big right hand or use that left hook. Yair, though, if we know one thing about him that makes him so effective, but at the same time so ineffective, is his willingness to engage in a blood and guts, I don't care, I'm throwing down and scrapping. And what worries me about this fight here, AJ, is that if he goes that route and he exerts a lot of that energy like he did against Max Holloway in rounds 1, 2, just standing his ground, just making sure every shot is getting answered, well, what happens come round 4, round 5? You know what I mean? Josh Emmett isn't that fighter where everything needs to have a rebuttal, right? So does that worry you at all, or do you see it differently?
Well, 100% it worries me because Josh Emmett is an absolute powerhouse, and it feels like this is the time when Emmett is really coming into his fold, man. It feels like Emmett has grown to become the fighter, and almost in a hushed tone. Nobody's been talking about Emmett. Everybody kind of forgot about Emmett over the last 2 years, and this dude is coming in for the kill. What makes me excited for this fight, Derek, is the kicks of Yair Rodriguez. Like you said, Josh Emmett's going to be there. He's going to be the one setting up that big right hand coming over the top. until you get kicked with a left, right in the ribs, and then another to the head, and then your legs getting kicked out. And next thing you know, there's a spinning axe kick to your face, jumping knee, all these things flying at you that is making you want to stop loading up on your punches and maybe take a backward step. That's my question, Derek. In this, whether it's a dogfight or whether it's a technical one, who do you think is going to be the one taking the backward step? Are we going to see Emmett on the front foot right here, or are we going to see Yair kind of taking advantage, making this a more bouncy fight, if you will?
If history serves us correct, I think Josh Emmett starts out on the front foot, but Yair is going to stand his ground, and then it's going to become a counter-striking battle after that. I will say this, man. Josh Emmett has definitely been the guy who he's winning fights, even though it doesn't really, like, numbers wise on paper, it doesn't look like he's winning his fights. His last 3 fights he won, even though he was outpointed in significant strikes. All 3 fights, right? So against Calvin Kattar, he got outstruck by like 25 plus strikes. Against Dan Ige, he got outstruck by 10 strikes. Shane Burgos, he got only outstruck by 1 strike here, but this is the point. He won all 3 fights while having less significant strikes in total. So clearly his is a power thing, right? Yair Rodriguez, man, not only volume, but like you said, with those kicks, he's bringing the power. So let's talk about it. If this fight hits the floor, who's on top control? Who's in the bottom?
Josh Emmett on top control. Well, Yair is throwing up some slick shit, Derek. Yair is not to be trifled with on the ground, but as always, until you're getting punched in the face, which Josh Emmett does have a tendency to really have heat-seeking missiles for your chin.
I like that. Heat-seeking missiles, absolutely. Let's take a look at these odds. Minus 165 for Yair Rodriguez to open up, plus 140 for Josh Emmett, which I'm a little surprised, honestly, because I thought given 5 wins in a row for Josh Emmett, they would have given him a little more respect here. But the props is really where it gets interesting. Plus 275 for a TKO for Yair, plus 155 for a decision, plus 1,600 for a submission. It's a little interesting to me. You know what I mean? That they really gave him the long shot. Like they're viewing him like he's just a pure striker here. However, that plus 300 for Josh Emmett, we have to talk about it. We'd be doing a disservice if we didn't. I mean, do you see some value there? Is that juicy or no?
Especially for a wild and exciting counter striker that Yair possesses. And if we saw anything from the Calvin Kattar fight that Josh Emmett had, Josh is calculated. This boy is reading things. He's seeing movements. He's setting up traps. He's feinting when he's supposed to, and he's reading things like he should be, man. This dude is a talented striker. It's very lucrative plus 300 right there. I kind of want to touch on that submission as well, man. If you got a little bit of scratch, Josh Emmett from the top, when he's throwing arms down, Yair is slick on the ground. So plus 1,600, you got $5. Why not?
Why not? Why not? I will say this, man. Josh Emmett, when I saw him take a flush spinning elbow to the face against Calvin Kattar and walk through it, I was like, oh, okay, this changes things, right? Yair is going to have to give him everything he's got, man. Yair will have to give him everything that he has to win this fight. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, man. The explosion, the athleticism of Yair Rodriguez, I think for a championship fight over 5 rounds, if he can hold up his cardio in rounds 4 and 5, I'm taking Yair Rodriguez here, man. And if we're being completely honest about it, man, the last loss that Josh Emmett has, it is a knockout loss to Jeremy Stephens. Okay, but if you look before that, man, dude, he's got one other loss in the UFC. It was a split decision. This is a very, very durable guy, and I know this is boring, and I know that this is not exciting, and a lot of people are probably going to be feeling a little bit of type of way about it. But at the end of the day, man, I think Yair gets it done via decision. I think that it's going to be a hard-fought scrap for that interim championship, and I want you to give me your pick, right, and the method, but then I'm going to talk to you about the over and under. So talk to me. How are you seeing it?
I see it the same way, Derek, especially because of the previous fights that Emmett has had. Yeah, sure, I said he's growing into his time. It feels like he's really coming into the fold right here. But if we've seen anything in his last fights that you've already highlighted too, the performance isn't there. But what beats a solid textbook performance when you're getting out significantly struck is when you have that kind of power. But what beats that is an explosive, stylish, somebody who's making the crowd go, ooh, even when he's not doing anything or connecting. And that's Yair Rodriguez, and that's why I think he's going to win this decision fight right here. But me personally, man, I think because of the dog that Emmett is, we're going to see a late round knockout. I'm taking a round 4 TKO Yair Rodriguez.
Okay. And I mean, shoot, man, it'd be the first time in a while that Emmett falls susceptible. But yeah, I mean, listen, man, you take a shin to the jaw in the wrong time. Yeah, you're not recovering from that one very well. I'll just say that. But this is what I wanted to talk to you about, man. Over and under on this fight. If you had to guess what the over and under was, what are you giving it?
3.5.
You would think, right? 2.5 rounds, man. The odds makers think that this is going to go to a finish. Now, if we're going over and under 2.5 rounds, what do you think the favorite is?
Over.
Yeah, yeah. Minus 280 for the over, plus 220 for the under 2.5 rounds. So the odds makers are a little more in line with what you're saying here. Probably a finish in the later rounds, but not a decision. I just think both of these guys are too tough, man. They're too tough for their own goods, man. So trading back and forth, I see this being a war. This could be very Korean Zombie-esque, you know what I mean? Where we see something go down at the last second. Either way, that is your co-main event for the